Hey everybody, it's me, Brother Wild Bill, coming to you from inside the most dangerous prison in the Western Hemisphere. I was a hitman on the outside in Central America from 2006 until 2010 when I was arrested, charged with quintuple homicide and given a 46-year sentence. I've been in prison, in third world prison, in the Republic of Panama's most dangerous prison. Since then, for 13 years, I've been in prison. I am the prison's recognized chaplain and gang mediator, and I am coming to you right now from inside that prison. If you want to know more about me, this ain't no cosplay, boys and girls. This is a real deal. Pull the description box down. You can check out my Wikipedia link there. That'll tell you a little bit more. That the information there is fairly accurate. This is the fourth installment of the rise and fall of General Manuel Antonio Noriega, the dictator of the Republic of Panama in the 1980s. Today we're talking about the fall and capture of General Noriega and the beginning of the end for Noriega. The beginning of the end for General Manuel Antonio Noriega, his dictatorship began in September of 1985 with the rape and execution of Hugo Spadafora. You can go back and hear that episode. There's 5 episodes out right now, so you can go back and hear that episode. That was the third one, the one before. If you haven't, you might want to stop right now and go back to the first episode. All the episodes are out. All 5 episodes are out right now, and you can binge them. They all amount to about an hour and a half of listening time. So the beginning of the end happened in 1985 with the rape and execution of Hugo Spadafora. And at Christmas time of 1990, the United States invaded and deposed General Manuel Antonio Noriega. But why did that happen? What were the reasons? Because he was a really bad guy? That's what the Americans would have us believe. It's the most, the easiest thing to believe. But there are many factors, both in and out of General Noriega's control, that contributed to the rise and fall, or the fall, of the dictatorship of Manuel Antonio Noriega. Remember that the Americans are in control of the Panama Canal. There's an enormous military presence here, and so they feel like they have to protect the canal, and what government in control of Panama is very important to them. Many factors come into play there. The first problem that the Americans had was in like 1987 when Pablo Escobar had clandestinely met. Pablo Escobar was the biggest drug lord, if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock for the last century. Pablo Escobar was the biggest drug baron, drug lord in the history of the world. I mean, he had more money than, he was probably I think he was listed as one of the third richest men in the world in 1990. He was a Colombian drug smuggler, producer and smuggler, who changed the face of Latin America. He met with Noriega clandestinely, and there's a really wooded and really jungle area of Panama that's dense and heavily populated, called Darien. And he met with Noriega and asked Noriega's permission and paid Noriega $10 million in cash to build a drug-producing laboratory, the biggest drug-producing laboratory in the world, biggest cocaine manufacturing center in the world, in Darien. But what they didn't know, and this was in the late 80s, was that the Americans had developed satellite imaging technology, and the Americans became aware of this enormous drug facility that's being constructed on Panamanian soil. And the Americans, unaware that Noriega was dealing directly with Escobar, went to meet with the DEA, went to meet with Noriega and said, "Looky here, Pablo Escobar's building this thing on Panamanian soil." And Noriega said, "Oh shit, oh no, oh no." He already knew about it. He'd already accepted money for it. But he played like he didn't, and the DEA said, "Well, we don't want you to do nothing about it. What we want you to do is just be cool and do nothing about it. And when it gets completed and it's in production, we're going to come and like raid it on Panamanian soil with the American army, and we're going to come and raid it and see if we can't get Escobar." So Noriega said, "Shit." He kind of owed Escobar a favor because Escobar paid Noriega. So Noriega called Escobar. No, he didn't call Escobar. Excuse me. He didn't want to call Escobar because he didn't want to fall out with the Americans. He was afraid of falling out with the Americans because the Americans were giving him money to run Panama. And then he didn't want the Americans to invade it either because he'd give Escobar a bunch of money, and Escobar could kill anybody, anywhere. And so he was afraid that Escobar would kill him. So he did like the worst thing he could do, a really Panamanian solution. This is if you want to know understand the Panamanians, this is a really Panamanian solution. He decided to half fuck everybody. He sent his own troops in to raid the drug facility. So the Americans got pissed off and said, what the fuck? We told you not to touch it. We were going to do it. And then the Colombian drug cartel, Escobar said, hey, you fucking idiot, I gave you $10 million. What the fuck are you doing? So what he ended up doing was pissing them both off instead of making, and he should have chosen one or the other, because they both were necessary in the funding for the Republic of Panama's military and stuff. So second thing that happened was, just like General Torrijos, he made the mistake of courting the favor of the Cubans. So he started sending some of his guys to be trained in Cuba and stuff, and the Americans were like, what the fuck are you doing? Those are our enemies. And so between these two things, between his ties with Fidel Castro and his ties with Escobar and his ties with the CIA, he effectively pissed off the whole of Latin America. And the Americans said, we ain't giving you no more money. And that was a nightmare scenario for Noriega. And the Colombian drug cartel, Medellin cartel, headed by Pablo Escobar, said, I'm going to fucking kill you. That was even worse, you know? So Noriega becomes paranoid now. He's like having to go into hiding in his own country, and the Americans ain't giving him no money. So what happens next is that over the next few years, there's not enough money to make payroll for the military, not enough money to make payroll for government jobs, you know, like people that work at the DMV, people that work at, sanitation. There's not enough money to pay them. So they go without pay for a couple of months, and then they begin to riot and strike. So Panama is literally in chaos. And Uncle Tony, my Uncle Tony, that's what I call him, Uncle Tony, that's what he told me to call him, he's my dear friend, General Manuel Antonio Noriega, calls the United States and asks, he asks one of George Bush's guys, says, hey, look, we're in shit here. My country's in flames. I've made lots of mistakes. I'm aware of my mistakes, and I want to take asylum and go off to France and just live the rest of my life. Noriega's old now. He's like in his late 50s. He's not a young guy, And George Bush sends a message saying, no, everything's okay. Hang in there, buddy. Everything is okay. This is at Christmas time in 1990. Meanwhile, he's planning an invasion. Bush didn't want him to go off an asylum easy. Bush wanted an invasion. Why? Why would Bush want to invade? Why would the Americans, not just Bush, why would the Americans want to invade Panama? A couple of reasons, and the main reason is because, like we had in Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua, we had left-wing, like communist-style, socialist-style revolutions. So this is in the American backyard. This is basically their next-door neighbors are arming all in favor of communism. And so remember, the Soviet Union hasn't collapsed yet, and the United States is like freaking out. They're scared. There's all these red commies, Bolivia, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua. These are really real problems that the United States is facing, and so what they wanted to do is to come in and spank Panama in front of all the other nations so that they would be afraid, so that the rest of the nations would quiet down, because they're like screaming for revolution and shit. So if the Americans figured that if they could come in and just beat the shit out of Panama in front of everybody, all the rest of the little children would behave well, It's like when you're in a class and you take the class clown in front of the class and you spank him with a paddle in front of the class so the other kids will behave well. That's the mentality of what happened. Noriega was trying to renounce. He wanted to give the control of the country over to a man named Endara, who was a president in exile, so to speak, in the United States. He was willing to give the military over. So the United States said, no, everything's okay, and then sent 40,000 American troops down to destroy Panama, which they did. And a lot of things, there's so many deaths that occurred in Panama during that invasion that you never heard about, because, all the media came from the United States that covered the thing, but they killed the shit out of a lot of civilians in that invasion. And Panama hates, really, if you want the truth, Panama hates the gringos, but they fear them. Panama dances to whatever tune comes out of the embassy jukebox, but I'm an American. I'm on the ground in Panama, and I'm telling you right now, Panama fucking hates. The normal Panamanians fucking hate Americans. So the invasion force comes in. General Noriega grabs his favorite hooker. This is true. oh man, after my own heart, grabs his favorite hooker and runs off to the Vatican embassy, believe it or not. So the Vatican embassy has dictator General Noriega and a hooker, in there. And so the Americans surround the embassy. I remember seeing this when I was a little kid. I was like 10 or 11 years old. That the Americans had speakers playing Metallica songs really loud at the embassy, not giving Noriega not a minute of. Noriega was trying to negotiate with the French to give asylum, so he could go to France and and not have to go to jail. And the French, because of the American pressure, said no, get your ass to jail. And so in December of 1990, he gave himself up, and the Americans carted his ass off to Florida, had him tried in federal court, sentenced to 40 years for drug trafficking. On appeal, his sentence was reduced to 20 years, and he began serving his 20-year sentence inside the federal penitentiary system. Now, on the 5th episode, we're going to talk about the Panamanian incarceration of General Manuel Antonio Noriega and his supposed death. And we're also going to talk about my personal relationship with Noriega that began in 2013 and ended at his supposed death in 2017. We'll understand. In just a little bit, you'll understand why I say supposed. I think he's dead now. By now, I think the old boy's dead. But I got a story to tell about my good friend Uncle Tony before we're done. I do think he's dead now, and I've waited a few years to tell this story because I want to make sure that he is dead before I tell the story. So it's really interesting. I think you'll like it. If you're enjoying these episodes, if it's the first one you've listened to, go back and listen to the first 3, because this is number 4. And if you've listened to the first 4, then the next episode is number 5. They're all out right now. They're all going to drop on the same Monday. Hope you're enjoying them. And this is a May Day, May 1st, 2023 is when these episodes will be dropping. So I hope you're enjoying them. Now pull the description box down. You find a way to contact me directly if you wanna. Facebook, Instagram, it's all there. Also, my Wikipedia page is there if you want to read more about me. And there's a book. Listen to this. Go drag your asses over to Amazon. Buy my book. I make $4 every time you buy one of those things. It's really interesting. It's got good critically acclaimed stuff. Long Live the King, Wild Bill. It's available on Amazon, and the link is in the description box. Take a moment right now. Do this, child. Take a moment, like, and subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to this channel and like it. It helps me. And comment something. Say, hey, Bill, I'm listening to your shit, and I love it. Or, hey, Bill, I'm listening to your shit. You're an ass. I hate it. Whatever. Comment. Thanks, guys. Love you guys. Jesus Christ loves you, and I love you, too. Catch you on episode number